He's believed to be the suspect wanted in the deadly shooting of UnitedHealthcare CEO.
Billionaires Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy appealed to lawmakers with their plans to slash the government.
We need to make government more efficient, and that is what this whole objective is. It's what the DOGE effort will be about.
Democrats should embrace government efficiency. That doesn't mean that we're going to start cutting services.
A 7.0 earthquake in Northern California. There was a tsunami warning that came out. That tsunami warning was lifted.
Bitcoin has topped $100,000 for the first time ever.
I think a big piece of what we're seeing here is a Trump bump, but I don't think it stops.
The FOMO, fear of missing out. You've got 150% rally in crypto, and why aren't I in?
When you're thinking about stocks, bonds, gold, commodities, you have to look at Bitcoin as a realistic option.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Police are still searching for the man who shot and killed the CEO of UnitedHealthcare Wednesday morning in the middle of Manhattan. The New York Police Department released new photos of the suspect, the clearest images of his face so far. So the pictures are from a hostel on the Upper West Side, less than 3 miles from where the shooting took place. 50-year-old Brian Thompson was killed just before 7 a.m. Wednesday while walking into a hotel for a work conference. The alleged gunman was seen on surveillance cameras approaching Thompson from behind, shooting him at least 3 times. CBS News has learned police found words written on the bullet casings found at the scene that may help with the investigation. Anna Schechter joins us now. She is the CBS News Senior Coordinating Producer for the Crime and Public Safety Unit. Thank you for joining us here on set tonight. I mean, you've been following this from the beginning, so I'm watching all these developments come through. Can you walk me through? I mean, how are the police tracking the suspect? How did they know where to look for those photos?
Well, it's a massive investigation, and he really got lost in the crowd. So despite all of the surveillance cameras all around Midtown Manhattan, he was able to hop on a bike and ride quickly enough into Central Park right after the shooting to lose them. There aren't as many cameras there. Now, luckily, investigators who were interviewing business owners and building owners along that strip on Central Park West obtained a video that we got exclusively last night showing him turning left on his bicycle on West 85th Street. But that's the last known image that we have of him. We know investigators have gone north to Connecticut to visit gun shops where the gun that they believe he used, that type of gun, can be sold. It's rare. It's a Station 6, a B&T Station 6 gun, generally 9 millimeters, and it's kind of hard to find. But because you have to present ID to purchase a gun like that, they were thinking, well, maybe that can provide the investigative clue. But at this time, according to our reporting, investigators and police do not know his identity. They have not landed on, this is definitively the person who carried out that crime. We see those photos
we just saw those photos, right? I mean,
they believe he is the man, but they are calling that person a person of interest that they want to question in relation to this murder. They're couching it. They're being careful. That is likely the person who carried out the crime, but they're being careful. And the fact that he was wearing that mask and he was able to drop the backpack also in Central Park.
Yeah, so those identifying factors. It's
all
so
these
hard.
little things that he did that threw up obstacles to investigators. Still, we are now 36 hours after the shooting. It is stunning that in this city, with the massive police force that we have, that he was able to evade police and identification.
The context, though, I think you give is really important because we're all watching this going, how does this all come together? I have to ask you about the bullet casings because there were words written on them.
Yes.
What can you tell us about those words and what they might mean?
Sure. The words were written meticulously, our sources tell us, in a Sharpie pen on the bullets and the cases. Words including deny and delay, very similar to the title of a book, Deny, Delay, Defend. Written by Jay Friedman, who's critical of the healthcare industry's insurance company comportment when people are asking for claims, when they're asking for coverage. They're denying coverage.
Okay.
And so this is a major clue that could speak to motive. They haven't said definitively yet, but investigators are absolutely pursuing this line of investigation and are looking at disgruntled feelings about health insurance policy as a potential motive in this murder.
Well, really important reporting. Of course, we can't connect anything yet. Like you say, it's potential. Right. But I was there when you got the call when this all started breaking yesterday. You started running, and you haven't stopped since. Anna Schechter, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Great to be with you.
Okay, well, President-elect Donald Trump's defense secretary pick, Pete Hegseth, was on Capitol Hill again Thursday, met with a number of Republican senators to try and lock in enough support to get confirmed. Now, Hegseth is facing mounting allegations about his past, including accusations of sexual assault and workplace misconduct. He's denied any wrongdoing and had this to say when asked about if lawmakers have expressed concern.
I'm a different man than I was years ago, and that's a redemption story that I think a lot of Americans appreciate, and I know from fellow vets that I've spent time with, they resonate with that as well.
While Trump's strongest allies on Capitol Hill have stood firm in supporting Hegseth for defense secretary, some members of the incoming Republican conference are hesitant to give the controversial pick their full backing.
Some of the allegations that have been made, if our staff determines that they have credibility, the nominee will be asked to address them. And if I were he, I would want to address them. And that's kind of where we are. I mean, my mind is completely open.
Well, I think everybody's got concerns with what's in the news, but I think he deserves a chance to respond. And I look forward to meeting with him. And the process that's in place is a process that will inform me and help me make my decision.
CBS News political reporter Jake Rosen joins me now from West Palm Beach, Florida. Jake, great to have you with me. Look, Hegseth is spending a lot of time on Capitol Hill. He says he's a different man. We just heard that. What's your read on whether he's making any progress in firming up this support?
Well, I think one of the most telling people who's come out not in support and not against him so far was Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, someone who has been rumored among the Trump circle down here as a potential replacement for Hegseth if he were to withdraw himself from consideration for this position. She said in an interview with Fox News today that she has not committed, and at least up until this point, the meeting that she had with Pete Hegseth, he did not convince her enough for a full endorsement at this point in time. I think that's where a lot of these senators kind of stand. You just heard it from a couple right there. They want to see this play out in potentially a confirmation hearing, but the real question that kind of overlooks all of this as we head towards Christmas is whether Hegseth keeps his name in for long enough. A senior Trump advisor told CBS News that time is running out for Hegseth to kind of prove himself on the Hill. We obviously saw the full court press that he and his mother did yesterday in her interview with Fox News for about 15 minutes talking about her son's marriage and faults, and that email that she wrote that we've reported on at CBS. But we'll have to see what exactly develops over the next couple of days.
Yeah, that was an important interview. I caught that. This is really all about political capital, too, because we know there's behind-the-scenes talks about potential replacements for Hegseth. You just mentioned one of them. But he has said the president-elect is still supporting him. Well, what's the Trump team's confidence level with the defense secretary pick at the moment, based on your read?
Well, at least outwardly, the Trump campaign has said that they support him all day for the last couple of days. The Trump campaign has boosted positive messages from Trump sympathetic or Trump allies in the Republican Senate on Capitol Hill after their meetings, boosting the images of Hegseth shaking hands and defying the media, like you also just saw there, kind of rebuffing questions about his past behavior, saying he wants to answer questions to the senators directly, not to the media, not have kind of a show trial in the halls of Congress. That being said, though, we saw this happen almost exactly with Matt Gaetz, who kept his name in the running, running, while Donald Trump did not pull him out himself. All of a sudden, at 11 in the afternoon a couple weeks ago, there was a full switch where Gaetz withdrew himself from consideration, and the Trump campaign by later that night had a replacement lined up. So that's in addition to potentially Florida Governor Ron DeSantis or Senator Ernst. Potentially there are other names already being floated ahead of time just in case this does kind of fall apart.
Yeah, it's a good comparison you make. But, Jake, while I have you, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, they were also on Capitol Hill speaking with lawmakers about the DOJ department that Trump plans to have them leave. House Speaker Mike Johnson spoke about lawmakers meeting with the pair. I just want to get your reaction to this. Let's listen.
And you're going to see a lot of change around here and in Washington and the way things are run. We need to make government more efficient. And that is what this whole objective is. It's what the DOGE effort will be about. And you're going to see a bicameral cooperation, and it will be, by the way, bipartisan.
So, Jake, Elon Musk, Ramaswamy, why are they on Capitol Hill now? I mean, they don't need to be confirmed for their roles.
No, they don't. And what Mike Johnson was saying there is teasing out potential bipartisan cooperation on things. I think there certainly is some. You played some in the intro. We heard other congressmen, especially Ro Khanna, say earlier today he was for the mission generally of cutting excess government spending. But where there will be a deep diversion is in terms of the mass firings that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have pitched, what Ramaswamy pitched on the campaign trail while he was running for president, which was basically every other bureaucrat being fired across Washington. That is not something that Democrats will go for, nor will cutting entire departments of the government. One notable comment on Capitol Hill today was Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis, who said that she wants them to take on things that Congress can't do, which is recommending to Donald Trump things outside of Congress.
Yeah, bipartisan support until you start cutting things that are important to people. Jake Rosen, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. The acting director of the Secret Service says the agency will reorganize and reimagine its culture and operations after 2 failed assassination attempts against then-candidate Donald Trump earlier this year. Rowe acknowledged the agency's failures while testifying Thursday before the House task force investigating those assassination attempts. The panel is set to release its findings in a report later this month. The hearing took a left turn, though, when Republican Congressman Pat Fallon of Texas accused Rowe of endangering President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris during a September 11th commemoration in New York City. The exchange turned into a shouting match as Fallon claimed Rowe was more interested in a photo op. You have to listen to this to believe it.
I'm asking you, Congressman, are you the special agent in charge? To show respect for a Secret Service member that died on 9/11. Oh, that you're trying to be. Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes. Oh, I'm not. I'm invoking this. You are, sir. And you are out of order.
CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Sganga has more from Washington.
The acting director of Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, under a magnifying glass as the House task force peppered him with questions, underscoring a lack of planning and training ahead of the president-elect Trump's campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania back in July. Now, lawmakers cited a lack of urgency, apathy, complacency among the ranks of the Secret Service, calling it a failed command climate. Chairman Mike Kelly likened communications on that day to a game of telephone. It's been 145 days since that first assassination attempt. Among the questions that still remain unanswered, why did Secret Service make no plans to secure the AGR building, where the gunman positioned himself on the roof, firing off 8 rounds? Rowe said not only does he not have an answer to that question, he's not been able to find a single written communication in the days leading up to the rally about what exactly the plan was. He called that the biggest shortfalling of July 13th. Another question, accountability. It remains unclear if the acting Secret Service director will move to terminate any agents, but he conceded this pace of this process, it really frustrates him. Now, Rowe did emphasize a need to reshape agency culture and tap into new technology, possibly partnering with the Defense Department. And this was new. We learned today that Secret Service is now using autonomous robot dogs to scan the seawall of the president-elect's Mar-a-Lago residence. Other lawmakers during this hearing pointing out that the short runway that Secret Service has when it comes to training, about half of agents have less than 10 years of experience under their belt. Now, as for that report that's due to come out, the task force panel, it's made up of 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and it's expected to submit those findings in the coming weeks. Their due date for that report is December 13th. I'll send it back to you.
Nicole Sganga, thank you. A 7.0 magnitude earthquake temporarily triggered a tsunami warning for parts of California Thursday. The earthquake's epicenter was just off the northern coast near Eureka, California. Happened just before 11 a.m. local time. The tsunami warning was issued out of precaution, but was called off about an hour later. CBS News correspondent Danya Bacchus has more.
Whoa! The U.S. Geological Survey says a magnitude 7 earthquake struck off California's northern coast southwest of Eureka.
If you were up in Northern California, you definitely felt it, and you definitely experienced some damage from that earthquake.
It was late morning on the West Coast when people as far south as San Francisco, about 260 miles away, felt a rolling motion for several seconds. Smaller aftershocks followed. The National Weather Service issued a rare tsunami warning, which has since been lifted, covering more than 500 miles of coastline and affecting at least 5.3 million people in California and Oregon. San Francisco CBS station KPIX brought the warning to viewers.
Listen to this. You are in danger. This is the emergency alert that went out. You are in danger. Get away from coastal waters. Move to high ground or inland now. Keep away from the coast until local officials say it is safe to return.
The quake prompted the San Francisco Zoo to evacuate visitors, move animals to higher ground, and secure its staff. Some schools also were evacuated. Boats in San Francisco Harbor made their way back to shore, and there was a traffic jam along the coastline as people tried to flee. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates more than 1.3 million people live close enough to the quake to have felt it. Danya Backus, CBS News.
Syrian rebels say they have captured the city of Hama. This comes days after the same Islamist militants known as HTS took over Syria's second largest city, Aleppo. Now, the Syrian army says it lost control of Hama after the rebels broke through its defenses. Army is now stationed around the city to protect civilians. Around 500,000 Syrians are believed to have been killed since the civil war began in 2011 in protest of President Bashar al-Assad's regime. Speaking to reporters Thursday, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for an end to the violence.
I emphasize the urgent need for immediate humanitarian access to all civilians in need and the return to the UN-facilitated political process to end the bloodshed.
Rebels posted this video of them driving through Hama Thursday. They're expected to target the central city of Homs next, which is about 100 miles north of the capital of Damascus. An Israeli airstrike killed at least 21 people in a designated humanitarian encampment in southern Gaza Wednesday night. The Israeli military says it was targeting senior Hamas officials in the area. The IDF claims it took precautions to protect civilians. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Pata has the latest from East Jerusalem. Deborah.
Hunger has spread everywhere in Gaza. In the north, Israel has allowed virtually no aid in for 2 months, turning down 82 of the 91 delivery requests made by the UN. And in the south, there is a trickle getting in, but it is nowhere near enough. Each morning, mothers like Jamalat Wadi head out in search of food. She and her family of 13 fled from the north of Gaza. Every day, she braves angry crowds fighting just to get a piece of bread. It's like gold and almost as expensive at $10 a bag, up from just $1 before the war. But in this case, she is not successful, returning to her makeshift tent empty-handed. On this night, all they have is a single bowl of lentils to share, the youngest always eating first. It would be 3 weeks by the time she eventually does receive a bag of flour. Here, a sea of kids jostle outside a soup kitchen, all starving. 11-year-old Zaina Juha's task was to wake up at dawn and come to this bakery to try and get bread for her family. One day, she did not come home. Little Zaina had been crushed and trampled to death in the crowd. Her heartbroken father cannot forgive himself for not being able to protect his little girl. Now, this comes as Amnesty International released a damning report on the war in Gaza, which has been rejected as false by Israel. The organization says its findings show that this is genocide and it must stop now. Back to you.
Deborah Pata in East Jerusalem, thank you for that report. Political turmoil in France as the country's prime minister is forced out of the role. So what exactly led to this and what happens next with the government? Plus, Donald Trump says he wants to pump the brakes on a tax credit meant to incentivize people to buy electric vehicles. But should you rush to purchase one now? We'll take a closer look. You're watching The Daily Report.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I
That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices. You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy! It's gonna be a ride.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going?
195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today? Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Well, the winter weather prompted snow squall warnings in parts of the Midwest and Northeast Thursday. These short, intense bursts of wind and snow create whiteout conditions that limit visibility and can make driving really dangerous. Now, the warnings come as a windy, low-pressure weather system moves east. It's bringing snow and wind to areas already blanketed by snowstorms earlier this week. Blizzard warnings are in effect in parts of Pennsylvania and the central Appalachians, stretching from sections in Maryland to West Virginia. Now, the woman accused of sneaking onto a Delta Airlines flight from New York to Paris was ordered to temporarily be detained during her first appearance before a judge Thursday. 57-year-old Svetlana Dali is charged with being a stowaway on a vessel or aircraft without consent. CBS News New York reporter Elijah Westbrook has more on her day in court.
Good evening. Well, at this time, 57-year-old Svetlana Dali is currently being held behind bars once again today after seeing a judge in the federal courthouse there behind me. The hearing lasted about 15 minutes, and she's being hit with charges after sneaking onto a Delta Airlines flight that departed from JFK Airport and went to Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport last Tuesday. The 57-year-old Russian national seen right here in this photo on board a Delta flight was promptly taken into federal custody Wednesday. Cameras are not allowed in the federal court, but Dali was brought into the courtroom by U.S. Marshals and was accompanied by her lawyer and Russian translator. She appeared calm, only wearing a black jacket, blue jeans, and sneakers. Now, prosecutors argue that Dali is a flight risk and should be held behind bars until the counsel is able to finish reviewing the details surrounding this case. Dali's lawyer rebutted and said that it wasn't necessary to detain her and that she's not a threat to society and wasn't trying to smuggle anything. But the judge believed otherwise and considered her to be a flight risk. Dolly's lawyer said while in custody, she claimed she was poisoned after leaving France and became ill. She says she lost consciousness at one point while detained. The drama started last Tuesday when authorities say Dolly snuck onto a flight without a boarding pass. The TSA is now confirming that they've reviewed security footage showing Dolly using a TSA lane for known crew members, which eventually merges with the general public. However, they also say she did go through the body scanner. Once again, we do want to mention she is currently being held behind bars right there behind me at the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse. She will see a judge tomorrow at 2 p.m. That's the latest at this time here in downtown Brooklyn. Elijah Westbrook, let's send it back to you.
Elijah, thank you for that report. Well, President-elect Donald Trump has indicated that once in office, he plans on ending the consumer tax credit for electric vehicle purchases. So under President Biden's signature Inflation Reduction Act, buyers qualify for a clean vehicle tax credit of $7,500 for a new electric vehicle and up to $4,000 for a used one. Policy also applies to lease vehicles. So according to Emmons, that's a car research and buying company, the average discount on EVs last month was more than $3,500 off the total price. However, even with that discount included, the average price of an EV was more than $59,000. So just for some context, that's roughly $12,000 more than the average price of a gas-powered car. Nora Naughton joins us now. She's the senior autos reporter for Business Insider. Nora, great to have you on the program. With the potential of that tax credit disappearing, should someone who's maybe thinking about buying or leasing an EV consider accelerating that timeline?
Yeah, right now is really your last chance to get a good deal on an EV. And it's not just because that these tax credits are potentially in danger. We have a big confluence of things that have made EVs really cheap right now, which is that automakers overestimated demand. So there is just too much supply on dealer lots right now, which means that they need to get rid of them. So there have been lots of discounts all year long, even before Trump was elected in November. That's ramped up now that we're heading towards the end of the year. And next year, the automakers will be enacting new production plans that pull back on some of that overproduction and bring things a little bit more in line with demand. And then that is going to make some of those deals we've seen go away. But right now is sort of the last chance for these like really once in a lifetime deals, particularly when it comes to leasing. You can really get quite a good deal on an electric vehicle right now.
Well, Nora, you mentioned the demand piece, that these companies overestimated demand. And so I kind of want to push you on one piece here, because one of the biggest worries that drivers have about EVs is charging, right? Many parts of the country, they need charging infrastructure still to be built out. And so if the new administration plans to deprioritize this green transition, if you will, do you think there's a concern that we wouldn't see that necessary investment in charging?
Yeah, there is definitely a danger there. What I will say about the tax credit and the infrastructure together, they are in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed by Congress under the Biden administration. It would take an act of Congress to repeal those things. So that's not to say that Trump won't try to make that happen, but it's not like he can get into office and turn this off immediately. So we could see a pullback in enthusiasm in relation to a new administration. But a lot of that money that is set aside from the government
was
is going to
passed
stay
by
in place.
Congress. Yeah. Though, to be fair, we do have a Republican Congress. So if he wanted to do something, he would, in theory, have the votes. Where does Tesla fit into all of this, right? I mean, Elon Musk's closeness to the president-elect, his company benefits from tax credits, yet he posted on X at one point saying, quote, take away the subsidies, so these tax credits, right? It will only help Tesla. Why?
I'm not sure. And I think a lot of the auto industry is trying to figure that out, too. One thing that Tesla does have over its competitors is that it has figured out a way not only to sell electric vehicles profitably, which is something that no other car company does, but run a car company at profit margins above 20% occasionally. So that's a lot of profit margin for him to deal with. That's given him the space to control the pricing in the EV market for the last couple of years. So this is just a company that runs so efficiently, they can afford for this the environment to get less favorable.
Yeah, I guess
okay.
if I'm going to kind of play back to you, if there is no tax credit, Tesla still has room to lower their prices, whereas a Ford and a GM, they're just not at that place from a profitability standpoint. Really interesting insight. And my takeaway is, if I'm considering an EV, there's some good deals right now. Nora Naughton, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, the cryptocurrency Bitcoin is seeing a big boom. Still to come, what drove its price to more than $100,000? And what's next for the industry with a new administration about to take over? You're watching The Daily Report.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
So this is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places. Bright, shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. I'm Kelly O'Grady. Here are some additions to our top stories. The search for a missing grandmother believed to have fallen into a sinkhole in western Pennsylvania earlier this week has now become a recovery mission. Police say they no longer believe that rescuers will find 64-year-old Elizabeth Pollard alive, but will continue to search for her remains. Pollard was last seen Monday night looking for her missing cat. Cuba says it has reconnected its national electric grid after a catastrophic failure Wednesday, but many are still without power on Thursday afternoon. Energy officials said power generation was at less than half of the country's typical peak demand. Wednesday's failure was the latest in a series of nationwide blackouts. The number of Americans filing new applications for unemployment benefits increased to 224,000 last week. The new data shows a jump of 9,000 people from the week prior. Meanwhile, continuing jobless claims dropped by 25,000, reaching less than 1.9 million. The price of Bitcoin has surged above $100,000 for the first time ever. The world's largest cryptocurrency briefly hit nearly $104,000 Wednesday night before it dipped slightly. The price is hovering around $97,000. It's been up, it's been down. The Bitcoin spike, though, it follows President-elect Donald Trump's announcement Wednesday that he plans to select Paul Atkins for chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, for some context, Atkins previously served as SEC commissioner from 2002 to 2008. He's also a major supporter of cryptocurrency. For more, let's bring in Faryar Shahzad. He's the chief policy officer at Coinbase, the largest platform for buying and selling cryptocurrency in the U.S. Thank you for joining me on set on this momentous day. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me
Giving up your holiday party, I heard. So thank you. So I want to put this moment into context because 2 years ago, Sam Bankman-Fried, right, who started the FTX crypto exchange, which was a competitor, was hiding out in the Bahamas after committing one of the largest financial frauds in U.S. history. The price of Bitcoin was roughly $17,000. We hit above 100K last night. How big of an inflection point is this?
Oh, it's an enormous inflection point. I mean, think about it. There have been a number of us who've been trying to build an industry in the United States under U.S. rules, regulated with investor protection. And so there's just been a lot of turmoil. Some of it's been people like Sam Bankman-Fried. Some of it has been regulators targeting the industry and trying to drive it offshore. I think what we're seeing with the rally is the normalization of what Bitcoin and the crypto markets can really operate at without political pressure being put on them. And I think that's very exciting.
And I mean, it's becoming a lot more mainstream, right?
Yeah.
I mean, more and more of the average Americans are buying cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. Why is this happening, though, right now, right? I mean, we've seen the momentum grow following President Trump's kind of 180 towards the industry, right? I mean, he's called it a scam a couple years ago. Now he's all in. But he taps Atkins to lead the SEC. And then the same day, Bitcoin reaches this milestone. I mean, what do you think Atkins is going to mean for the industry?
Well, the question you asked about why now, really the more important question is why not earlier? The rest of the G20 is actually very far along in producing very clear rules. You've got the UK, Europe, other jurisdictions who have declared they want to be leaders in digital asset technology, update their financial system with digital asset technology. And so the fact that the U.S. is finally beginning to catch up is enormously important. In terms of,
you know, I do want to ask you, though, I mean, do you think that we're going to get some clarity finally around this question of security, commodity, you know, where are the guidelines?
Yeah, remember, I mean, the mission of the SEC is to protect investors, promote capital formation, and create fair and orderly markets. And what that has meant for the history of the agency has been clear rules, and when there's uncertainty, provide guidance to the markets, market participants, so they know how to comply with the expectations of the agency. You've had this strange, anomalous period that's coming to an end now, hopefully, where you've had an agency that's been wreaking havoc on the industry, sowing discord. And I think with the Atkins announcement, we'll see the agency go back to its original mission to try to protect the markets, protect investors, provide clear rules. And we're excited to build under that rubric. Yeah,
I can tell you, I was at the Bitcoin Nashville conference when President Trump said, "I'm going to fire Gary Gensler." It felt like I was at a rock concert and people cheered. But you know, what do you think the future of crypto will look like under President-elect Trump? I mean, what are you hoping policy-wise?
Well, remember, crypto's a lot of things. Fundamentally, it's a technology, and that technology updates the internet. Right now, under the internet, you and I can transmit information back and forth to each other. And until crypto came along, we couldn't transmit value, whether it was a currency or a gaming point or a frequent flyer mile. And what will now happen is that there's just thousands of developers all around the world that are building really cool applications using this technology. And it'll become a part of our regular life. We'll now be on the internet, being able to transmit information and photos and images back and forth, but also things of value, whether it's currency or a frequent flyer point. And I think that's very, very exciting. It's going to be a transformational moment in the investment markets, but a transformational moment in the application of the internet.
I got about 15 seconds. Yeah. Someone's watching, they're listening to you. Oh, okay. You know, what's your advice to folks who might want to get into investing in the space?
Well, I would give the same advice to anybody who invests. You know, educate yourself, learn more about the asset class, see what you think about it. And I think it's a great opportunity for people who get informed and put a little bit of money into it.
So educate yourself.
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate your time, Faryar.
All right, thanks for having me on, Kelly.
Okay, well, French President Emmanuel Macron is accusing his political opponents of creating chaos after left and right-wing lawmakers voted to oust his prime minister just 3 months into the job. In a public address Thursday, Macron said he will appoint a new prime minister in the coming days, one that he says will reach consensus in a bitterly divided parliament. Currently, no political party holds an absolute majority in France's legislature. In his address, Macron said, quote, "I will never take the blame for the lack of responsibility of others. We can't allow ourselves to be divided or to do nothing." Angela Charlton joins us now. She's the Western Europe News Director for the Associated Press. Angela, great to have you on the program today. I want to level set for a moment. I think it would be helpful for some context for our viewers. Just how bad are the political divisions in France right now? Has the country been in this situation before?
No, in fact, this is unprecedented for France. We're in a situation with a hung parliament. We've got 3 political factions that are roughly equally balanced, and they absolutely do not get along and can't agree on anything. This is the far right of Marine Le Pen, the left-wing parties, and Macron's centrist, center-right camp. And this has been the case since elections in July, and this parliament has been able to do almost nothing so far except bring down the government this week.
Well, in the U.S., we are no strangers to sides not getting along, so I hear you on that. I'm curious, I mean, Macron says he will not step down. So in your perspective, how much of the political turmoil you're seeing is a result of his actions?
Well, Macron himself acknowledged in his address to the nation tonight his own share of responsibility in what's happened now by calling those snap elections in the summer that left this hung parliament and in fact made things worse for him and for France than they were before. So he's aware of that, but he also stood his ground, was very firm, saying he is going to stick it out to the rest of his term. It's another 2.5 years before his term is up.
And so, of course, the next prime minister is going to have a lot to handle once this person's named, including a budget issue that partially drove that vote of no confidence. So what do you think are some of the immediate challenges that this person would have to deal with?
Well, it's kind of everything. But as you say, the budget was key. That's the reason that the government fell, is that the parties couldn't agree on a budget for 2025. So here we are a few weeks away from the new year with no budget. So that's going to be #1 priority. Macron did say tonight that he would try to push through a bill in Parliament as soon as possible that would allow just an automatic levying of taxes and things starting on January 1st so that basic services could continue. And France does have a slightly different structure from the U.S., so you wouldn't have a full U.S.-style shutdown January 1st, but it's still a problem for many sectors, and it's something that's worrying financial markets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, investors don't like uncertainty. I don't care what market they're playing in. Well, let's kind of shift gears, though. I mean, Saturday, right? It's meant to be such a big day for France. It's the reopening of Notre Dame after that devastating fire. President-elect Donald Trump is set to be there along with other world leaders. Do you think this political uncertainty is overshadowing all of that?
Well, it is. It's bad timing for Macron. He's got this big show he's been planning for 5 years, basically, that's starting on Saturday, including all kinds of visitors, as you say, with including Donald Trump. And now he's got no government. Everything's in turmoil. It does remind us a bit of the situation right before the Paris Olympics. That's when we had these snap elections and things were up in the air and things were very stressful. But I think that based on what we saw in the summer during the Olympics, Macron will probably try to do the same thing and just turn all of his energy toward the cathedral, toward the reopening. He will not make any reference to the political situation, and he'll just try to rise above it and make this weekend all about the heritage of humanity, this magnificent cathedral rising from the ashes for the world to enjoy, and really distance himself from the politics at home.
Yeah, I mean, it is set to be a momentous occasion, so I guess the political problems can wait for Monday. Angela Charlton, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thanks. So, when do you plan to retire? Turns out the answer for most Americans is younger than they were anticipating. We'll explain what's going on. You're watching The Daily Report.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
That's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I can see clearly now.
Clearly, CBS Mornings.
Weekdays on CBS.
Yeah!
Tony, coming?
No, I'm gonna stick around for an hour.
CBS Mornings Plus with Adriana Diaz and Tony DeCopel, right after CBS Mornings.
It's just like mornings.
Plus fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
These 7 miles of tunnels were the secret storage site for fuel for the Navy's Pacific Fleet in planes.
So this is one of the tanks.
Oh my gosh.
What happened 20 stories below ground is a story for 60 Minutes.
This thing that was a lifeline for the fleet is a threat.
That's right.
I'm Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours, and of all the cases I've covered, this is the one that troubles me most. Listen to Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green, wherever you get your podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
It can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Sunday morning, a visit with the Wayans at Papa's house, plus affairs of state with the diplomat, and in praise of pigeons. Listen for the trumpet.
Many Americans typically consider 65 years old to be the right age to retire. But according to the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, the median retirement in the U.S. is actually 62 years old. Now, the research also found nearly 6 in 10 retirees said they called it a career earlier than they had initially planned. So what's causing more Americans to retire sooner? Dan Geltrude joins us now. He's the founder of the accounting firm Geltrude & Company. Dan, thanks for being here. So look, what are some of the reasons that Americans are retiring earlier than they intended?
Well, it's not always because they want to. What's happening with some people is health issues arise as we age, and that is forcing people to have to retirement. In addition, again, as we age, sometimes you just can't meet the demands of your job, and it forces you into retirement. And then, of course, there's other times where people simply lose their job and they're unable to find another job. So these are real situations, although, you know, it's unfortunate that people are being forced into retirement before they want to.
Yeah, job loss there, 16%. How is that early retirement, though, impacting older Americans? I mean, how financially prepared do you think that they are for these later life stages?
Well, that's where the problem lies, because only 20% of people who are 50 years old right now, they actually have no retirement funds at all. Now, that's alarming because people are living longer and you need to have those funds available. So what's happening is there's simply not enough planning that goes in before that. You know, 60% of retirees only live on their Social Security. So if that's all you're going to have, you really better make sure that you have some other way to get your hands on some much-needed income in those retirement years.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned Social Security because we always hear wait to draw on that until 70 to get the maximum benefits. But for some, I mean, that's not always possible. So what's your advice to older Americans to best manage that Social Security?
Well, it's a challenge, but it certainly can be done. First of all, you have to put yourself on a budget. You really need to know what's coming in and what's going out. On top of that, you have to learn how to cut expenses. You simply have to learn to do what you used to with less money available for that. Downsizing your home, another opportunity. And with the prices of real estate right now, it may be a good time to sell. It's also wise to have some type of supplemental income in addition to Social Security. And also, any investments you have, you really want to make sure that they're diversified and they're conservative.
Well, Dan, I think that's probably also some really good advice for young Americans, too. Budget, cut your expenses, diversify your investments. Really great advice tonight, Dan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So on this year's Giving Tuesday, Americans were more generous than ever. A record amount of money was donated to nonprofits. We'll take a look at just how much. You're watching The Daily Report.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
So this is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 Hours, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
3, 2, 1.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas in the nation's capital. President Biden led the last national tree lighting of his presidency Thursday. This year's tree is a 35-foot-tall spruce from Virginia. 58 smaller trees around the White House were decorated with ornaments made by students from every state. And Walmart has recalled freshly cut cucumber slices from 34 stores in northern Texas due to a potential salmonella contamination. Now, this comes as federal officials investigate a larger outbreak. It's affecting products sold at major retailers in 35 states. According to the Food and Drug Administration, at least 68 people have been sickened. The cucumbers were sold by 3 different brands. They were grown in Sonora, Mexico, and were sold in stores between October 12th and November 26th. And Americans were feeling extra generous for this year's Giving Tuesday. According to the nonprofit that shares a name with the unofficial holiday, Americans gave $3.6 billion on the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. That's up 16% from the year before. The organization also says 9.2 million people took time out of their day to volunteer. The CEO of the nonprofit called it a testament to the power of collective action. And here's a look at some of the top stories we're covering in our next hour. New clues in the manhunt for the alleged killer of UnitedHealthcare CEO, the words written on the bullets and images of the suspect without a mask. Plus, a Capitol Hill hearing on Secret Service failures gets heated. The takeaways from the investigation into assassination attempts against President-elect Trump. And with big possible changes coming to the electric vehicle sector, is now the time to buy. What you need to know before taking a trip to the dealership. You're watching CBS News.
CBS Mornings Plus, clearly more news, more smart conversation.
More money-saving tips, more recipes.
More uplifting ways to get you